any wargame, anytime. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Any Wargame, Anytime. I am Bozz and joined here today by Dan.
Hi,
Say
hello.
hi. And today we're going to talk about why Games Workshop sucks as a company. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But gosh, we've got a lot to get through.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. When we looked into setting up this podcast, I think that we really had to massively cut down on the things that we want to talk about just because we don't want this to be a 3-4 hour podcast.
yeah. We also don't want it to
So
be a general kind of anti-Games Workshop podcast at large, because that's not what we're about. We're about looking at all sorts of different war games and looking at them honestly and objectively. So I've been involved with Games Workshop in and out since, I don't know, 1998, 1999 perhaps. So
wow.
I've been around for a lot of the ins and outs that we're going to be talking about.
About 1994 for me. So
Yep.
me and Boz are definitely old in the tooth on this. We've seen so much. It is funny to hear. You can always tell some of people who haven't been around GW, or maybe they've been around for like 4 or 5 years, and they're like, these podcasters are like, all they need to do is balance it and make some changes, and they're like, surely they'll do it. And
Poor naive fools.
I know.
All right. Well,
Um,
I think the best place to start is probably the fact that you kind of touched on it there. Their game isn't particularly good.
oh,
It
oh man.
was it was 30 or 40 years ago. Well, not 40 years ago, that's a bit too far, but it was, during the late 80s, early 90s, it was a good example of what a war game can be, but it's very outdated in a lot of the ways that it wants you to play it these days. What do you think about that?
Well, I would say that in this podcast, I know that there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of anti-GW podcasts that complain, but I think that we would want to steer this also in a positive route. And I think we can't help but look at OPR as an example of what I feel, and I think Boz probably feels the same, as the future
Oh yeah.
of miniatures wargaming. And I want to make that comparison. You're right. GW's company and model were great 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the world has changed since then. And I think that we're going to look at some things about how GW really does need to step up their game, and how perhaps other companies need to look at OPR and to say, these guys are doing something different. I don't think, it's funny, Boz. When we created this podcast, you remember we were basically like, we don't want to be a fanboy podcast, right, Boz?
Yes.
We want this to be honest, but as we were saying, we have to call a spade, and OPR is just doing things that are just very smart. Boz, we've been critical of some of OPR's,
Absolutely, because they're not getting it perfect. Like
yeah.
like everybody else, no one's getting it perfect. And it's probably good to point out as well, for all the people listening to this who are typing away on their keyboards about how much we hate GW, we are going to make a what we like about GW episode as
Mm-hmm.
well, because there's good stuff as well, just like with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But with the comparison to one-page rules, I mean, I think it stems fundamentally from the fact that Games Workshop is a miniatures company that make a war game to sell their models. Coming at it from that angle, you're only going to make your war game as minimally good as it needs to be to sell those models. And Games Workshop have this massive advantage of so long in the industry and being like the industry standard. It's like when you say tabletop role-playing game, you think Dungeons and Dragons, not because it's the best one, because it's not, but because it's the most popular and well-known.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
right.
it's the same with Games Workshop, and they've been riding that wave for a very long time. And
Yeah, and oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Boz.
I was just going to say, and One Page Rules is a subscription-based company. They get most of their money, if not all of it, really, from their Patreon. And in their Patreon, they release new models every month as part of the Patreon fee, and you get all the updated rules as they come out as well. The basic versions of everything are available for free, and they even give out starter kits that you can 3D print or have 3D printed for you that are 2 starter armies for any of their games, and rulers and a bit of terrain and the rules, as I say, and all that's free. And you compare that to Games Workshop that costs, I think Leviathan cost £150 when it released. Or I could be wrong. It could be 250. I should have probably looked that up.
Whatever you think it was, you should add $50, and
many
that's what it is.
many monies, many monies, and we're
Well,
talking about plastic here.
yeah, and it's hard to yeah, and we have to forgive us. I think me and Boz are going to resist the urge not to constantly interrupt each other, because when
We'll try.
yeah, I know. And so I want to apologize to Boz in advance, because the frenzy is coming upon me, the furious. And
The
this
red
is
mist.
yes, and this is OPR 2.0 furious, where I'm getting the extra attack. So but I think you're right. I think that, like, it's again it's seeing some of the newer podcasts, especially some of the Games Workshop centric ones, they seem to like be aghast constantly about, like, why is GW doing this? It's such a bad decision for lore and bad decision for the player base. But I mean, it's a good decision for profits, and that is really what GW is about. And it's not that, I always say, it's not that they're evil, it's that they are a publicly traded company that is there to sell models, and that regardless of the lore, regardless of the player base, they are going to, that is their goal, to make money. Um, I love, Boz, you made a point, and I it's so true that you're saying are riding a wave. And I think that GW really has rode a wave since probably, I mean, I always like to say second edition 40K was some of the best lore, some of the best writing that came out of anywhere. I mean, some of those, I would suggest get some of those second edition codexes, and you will see just amazing stuff from a creativity standpoint. And I still feel that GW is kind of still riding that wave
Yeah.
of, especially in 40K, right? That they're kind of riding on the coattails of a lot of work that was done 20, 30 years ago. But yeah, let's get into, what do you want, how you want to do this, Boz? How do you want to attack this beast first? What do you think?
Well, I think that's a good segue into something that I actually haven't written down in my notes, but that came to me just now. And one of the stark differences between these old edition codexes and rule books, with the beautiful grimdark art, the John Blanche stuff, and all that wonderful art, is that these days they're so kind of overprotective of their IP that they're not even crediting the artists
Oh yeah.
in their work anymore. They won't. It'll just be, copyright Games Workshop. They're not even putting faces on their painting videos anymore. It's all just hands. They're terrified that someone else will get really popular and then go and start off their own YouTube channel. It's very insular. It's very exclusive, and I think you're right about. Well, I mean, there's no argument. They are a publicly traded company out to make profit. That's fine. That's, that they make no secret of that. But I think the way they go about it is so short-sighted.
Yeah.
Rather than get people hooked with a good game put out by a good company that make good miniatures, and their miniatures are beautiful. That'll feature quite heavily on our What We Like About GW podcast, I suspect. But rather than do that, they're just grabbing whatever short-term profit they can to make their shareholders happy in the short term, and they're not really investing in us, the players, the fans, the money bringer-inners, if to use the technical term. They're just not.
Yeah,
They're
it's
just not focusing on us. They don't. They know that enough people are going to buy it regardless, so they don't really appear to have much of a long-term plan other than just consistently raising prices and expecting people to keep up with it.
Well, and I think you're right. They like they care not, and that's what I think it's you're hitting on something. GW does not care about balance. They do not care about how they don't care about their own lore. They don't care about their own history. They will change lore. They will change anything for a short term. And I think to me, one of the best examples that it actually surprised me. When we saw this, I think probably a month ago. It's getting almost a month ago with the finally retiring regular Space Marines.
Yeah.
It's just to me, that's even a low blow for them.
Yeah.
To take a regular like this, the regular Space Marine has always been the standard of 40K, right? It was a model
it's the poster boy.
It's the poster boy, yeah. And the standard Marine was that. And to at some point recognizing that it's like I understand that maybe they don't want to produce standard Marines anymore. That's fine. Maybe they want to make the Primaris the standard Marine. Now, I get it. But to effectively retire these armies, to basically make them no longer tournament legal,
yeah,
it's just so wrong. I mean, like, why can't they keep regular Marines in competitive play? And it goes back to it. These players who have been with GW playing Marines for years, they want to get some extra money out of them. All those Marines that you have, some of these Marines are 20 years. Like you said, the models are great. These models stand the test of time. There's Marine models 20 plus years old that are great. Nope. Out the door. Buy the Primaris Marines. All those armies that have lived on, that basically have a legacy of their own, are gone now. And it's such a deep betrayal, I think, of their fan base that that hurt me. It just hurt me when I saw that. What do you think about that, Bozz?
I have a Marine army. I have a Marine army that I started when I was, I don't know, 12 or 13 when I was first getting into it. Like many people, that was my first army. And of course, I'm going to use them as Battle Brothers and Grimdark Future and whatever. That's fine. I've still got uses for them. But the fact that they were just the mainstay of Games Workshop's 40K kind of lineup have just been dropped like a hot turd, And it was the way that they went about it that I thought was particularly a slap to the face of the customers and the fans, which was, instead of saying at the launch of 10th, by the way,
oh yeah, that's great.
This is now what we're doing with Marines, Primaris. It seems to me like the Primaris Marines were always intended to phase out the Firstborn because they wanted to upscale them, which is fine, whatever. But instead of saying that at the start of 10th, they waited until it was about a month old.
Oh, they clear out their stocks.
Well, yeah, they clear out their stocks, exactly. They have people going, oh, it's a new edition. I'm going to start a new army. I like the look of Space Marines. I like the look of Firstborn. I'm going to go that route. And a lot of people have dropped a lot of money into a product that they've turned around and gone, well, actually, no, you can't use that anymore. It's now in the legacy rules, which for friendlies only, and both people have to agree to it. And it's just such a kick in the teeth.
I mean, it is low for GW. And me and Bozz, we have seen 30-something years, almost. We have seen, combined, we've basically seen have a shared of experience in GW of about 50 years, right? We've seen a lot, but this is mind-blowing to me. And to me, why can't they do the right thing? Why can't you just say, first generation, you put them on new bases, hey, you're still in the game. How many 40K players are looking at their game group, right? I mean, these are people, maybe they have a gaming group of 10 or so people. They're now out of that gaming group, right? Because out of competitive play, no one's really competitive play is so important that you're basically kicking out these people from a group that they've been a part of for maybe years. And they're saying, buy a brand new army and paint it. It's just, why can't they do the right thing, Boz? Why can't they just, hey, first generation are just the squat versions of the Primaris,
Yeah.
and just put them on the bases. I don't. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
tough.
I think we're going to see the lore start to reflect that change as well. I think we're going to see less and less in the lore about Primaris and Firstborn, and just have them be called and referred to as General Marines. I think that distinction's going to vanish in
Hmm.
the lore as the small ones get phased out of the model lineup.
What if they squat them? What if they just say all the Marines first basically are killed off in some? I mean, they've got the.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
mean,
Oh,
I think
that
they're
they
going
were
to
all
squat
fed.
them.
Yeah, they were all fed to the Tyranids. Well,
Yeah,
it kind of makes me
yeah.
want. It kind of makes me wonder who's next.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean,
Like, if they can do that to the poster boy Space Marines, then who's safe? Who's is my Imperial Guard army going to get retconned into oblivion next?
yeah, it's well, we've been, we don't want this all to be doom and gloom. I think me and Boz have sufficiently depressing the fan base. But we do want to take a little time and talk about it in terms of OPR.
Hmm.
Um, I think me and Boz, we really started doing this because we don't want to be fanboys of anybody. And me and Boz, we look at OPR and they are doing some things that we would like to see some improvement on, but it's
Absolutely.
hard not to just call a spade and just see a company that by changing their profit model, all of a sudden it opens up so many opportunities for a great game, right? When you are not, whenever as a company you don't care about how many models you sell, you care about how many subscriptions you get,
Yeah.
it changes everything, right? And
Absolutely.
OPR can make decisions which, if they were a model company, would be crazy. A great example is the creator program, right, that they have, where it was the creator compatibility program, where they
Hmm.
are reaching out to these third party model creators and being like, hey, join us, create
Yeah.
models for our army, and we
Yeah.
will basically advertise your product, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like,
they're actively supporting that, and it isn't just create new models for this army. It's, hey, would you like to create an entire new army that we will write rules for and integrate into our game?
yeah, I mean, it's just like, or even better, pay your $5 a month and create your own army. Like, that's
Yeah.
something that me and Sam, we're big Mage Knight fans. We are looking to create all the Mage Knight armies in OPR, right? And
Hmm.
it's like, here's a tool that we built. It's a $5 a month in addition to everything else you get and I'm a $5 a month. I don't even buy the models, but so a minimum of $5, and you can create your own armies, and it can be balanced.
Yeah.
It's such a, it shows you that when you have a profit model that isn't about selling models, all of a sudden there's so many opportunities that just open up to you.
Absolutely. And to be kind of clear about this, OPR want to make money too.
Yeah.
They really like money. Most people do, all companies do, and they want to make it. The difference is the way that they're going about it. This subscription based profit model, as opposed to the profit model that Games Workshop engages with and has engaged with and refuses to budge from. There's no reason why Games Workshop couldn't make changes to its business model that would see it remain a ridiculously highly profitable company. They
Mm.
just they just choose not to, and that is probably the reason more than anything else why I don't support them as a company anymore. I
It
think
yeah, it's so GW, just like I said, even on their lore, like we don't want to keep it too long, but I can't help but mention the other thing I think that was a true low blow for Boz's Blood Bowl. So when Blood Bowl released, they did the cease and assist
mm-hmm.
for whenever they retired some of these games. Blood Bowl is a good example. Warhammer Fantasy
Yep.
has been supported for years. So in other words, Blood Bowl, in other of these games are so great that the fan base continues to support them long after GW has basically just shut the door on them. And yet, the moment that GW came out with Blood Bowl, they re-released it. They basically released a series of cease and desists, shut down all those fans, didn't try to work with them, didn't try to say, look at these fans, bring them into the fold, right? Make them community, give them some recognition, right? Like I think it's so underhanded.
Yeah,
These people are basically have been selling models for you long after you close the game, and to kind of come out of the bat and say cease and desist, and it's unsurprising that these cease and desists happen. They happen right as they're releasing their competitive game. So Warhammer Armies Project got. I'm glad that they're still surviving, but Ninth Age is coming. I'm sorry, Old World is coming out,
yes,
and just to say, oh, thanks, but no thanks. Stop doing anything with our product.
yeah.
Even though
It wouldn't
when
have
it was
cost
serving our
them.
interests, yeah,
Yeah, it wouldn't have cost them anything to keep those people in the fold, or at least to make reference to them. And it's like, hey, thank you so much for keeping this community alive. We've got it now. We're going to move forward with it. Like, think of the goodwill within the community that that would have generated. When someone says, oh, Games Workshop sucks, they could have said, well, what about how they treated the Blood Bowl community
mm-hmm.
after being away for so long? What about how they treated the old world community after being away for so long? But
Mm-hmm.
they just consistently make the worst possible choices in terms of community goodwill. And
I
that
know it's yes. Some of it is just. I feel like do these people not like their fan base? Like I don't know sometimes,
I
but
just don't I think really truly they don't care enough about their fan base to like them or not.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think they see a fan base. I think they see wallets.
yeah, and that's just it is a sad thing. I on a happy note, and I think we luckily we have a thing that like OPR to me, it's brought me back into 40K. I had quit 40K for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I just couldn't stand the new editions, I just couldn't do it. And it's so great to have that we do have an alternative. And I would say this, if there's any GW people listening to this, it's never a better time here. Take your Marines, go to your gaming group, say, hey, here's this great game. Are you tired of the 10th edition meta already? And I got a taste of that 10th edition meta.
Oh boy.
Holy crap.
Oh
It's
boy.
it's it's pretty dumb.
Yep.
I'm saying so, I would call out to my fellow GW fans who hey, I'm with you. I've been part of this experience with you guys. Let's continue this experience in OPR, right? Let's continue this, right? We don't have to, you don't have to quit the game, right?
No,
Don't quit the
no,
game.
you don't have to sell your models. You don't have to leave them on the shelf gathering dust. There are other things that you can do with it. And if your firstborn Marines have just been made obsolete, then they're battle brothers.
Yeah.
They're in Grimdark Future, they're battle brothers. They're about as good as Marines should be within the lore and within the game mechanics. And it's just it's hard to talk about the things we don't like about GW without talking about the things that we do like about OPR.
Mm,
And
mm.
that's just the way it is. And it's a well balanced system that is interesting to play, and by that I mean you're always in the game and doing something. It's activation by activation. It's not sitting there for half an hour waiting for your opponent to move all their stuff and look through the rule books and find out which does what, and you might do a couple of rolls to save every now and then. I think
Or yeah, yeah, or even better, especially in the new edition in ninth, to move your stuff and then watch your opponent move, do a million different stratagems, teleport things 3 or 4 different places, shoot, and then go invisible. And then he does it all so fast, and you're just like sitting there wondering why you even bothered to come and
yeah.
set your models up for them to just be teleported. Or I mean, it's crazy, and
I cannot get behind a game where it isn't unheard of to be tabled before you've been able to take your turn, or even to be tabled on turn two.
yeah, it's just go out
And
and change it.
it shows. I think we're kind of circling back here to this idea that they're not a wargaming company. They're a model company that makes a wargame to sell their models, and it's just so difficult to get past that when I'm trying to think of things to say about Games Workshop. It's like, well, the first and foremost is they don't make a good game. And
No, well, no.
and
I mean,
that's kind of where I get stuck. They don't make a good game, and they take every opportunity to make it more bloated every like every chance they get.
I think that third edition 40K was it was an improvement from second. I loved second, but second was pretty janky. Third was great.
Third
And
edition is my jam. I play a lot of third edition 40K.
yeah, has its problems.
They all do.
But I think the game system itself, but I'm just for those who are hoping that GW will balance thing, I think me and Bozz are bringing to you 50 plus years of experience with GW.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're telling you is they're not going to balance their game.
Yep.
It's not going to happen. Don't wait for it. And it's just not going. Don't like as me and Bozz have done for years, hope that things get better. No, it just doesn't.
Yeah.
So.
And you know what? If the idea of alternating activations and having to learn a new system doesn't appeal to you, that's also fine. Go back and play third. Go back and play second.
Mm-hmm.
These rule books are out there on eBay to be had. You can find all the codexes if you look hard enough as well. You don't have to play the modern mess that Games Workshop puts forward as a well-balanced and well-done war game. You don't have to do it. There are other options.
Even better, OPR has rules for non-alternating. If you want to make a rule, they have those rules where you don't have to play alternating. How great is that? So yeah. So anyway, we're gonna close out this little podcast on a positive note and say there is hope for these new generations. You don't have to be like me and Bozz during the Codex. You can take up a game and have fun with it. And and play a relatively balanced game, not perfect in OPR, but getting better. I think getting better.
Yeah, I would agree. All right. Well, thank you very much. That's the podcast for this time. We promise that this is going to be the only one of this sort that we make. We might break that promise and do one.
We're definitely going to break that promise.
just because Sam hasn't been here for this one. So stay tuned for the next episode coming out in the not too distant future. Cheerio.
Bye.